Hi, folks. This is Louis Hertham, the original Peter Abernathy. Hell is empty and all the devils are here on the Shat on TV Westworld podcast with Roger, Gene, and Big D.
Welcome back to Shat on TV Westworld Edition, the unofficial podcast companion piece for the hit HBO television series Westworld. I'm one of your hosts, Roger Roper, and alongside me is my big co-host, Big D, Dick Ebert.
Good evening.
And this is our Instacast episode where we look back on this week's episode of Westworld and provide our immediate reactions, thoughts, and analysis. This week's episode was entitled Vanishing Point. Big D, you and I are recording this in your home studio in Orlando, Florida. What did you think? We just sat there and we watched it together on your couch like best friends.
Well, this is going to be a strange experience because we're two grown men sitting at an IKEA children's desk, and we're sharing one monitor because the mixer didn't arrive today. So it's an interesting recording situation.
At least it doesn't sound like we're in a European subway bathroom like Gene and I did for the Telegraph.
Yeah. So to get back to the episode, it was this is the first time I think we've recorded in person together. Right?
Yeah, this is the first time. I think we did a Game of Thrones preview episode once before together, but like listeners will understand, I live in Arizona, you live in Florida, so Gene and I get to record a lot, even Carrie Gross, but it's on the rare occasion. In fact, I think there's a 0.0072% chance of you and I recording in person, which is happening today.
Yeah, so it was nice to have some company. It was a Father's Day, so families in town.
Happy Fathers.
Oh, thank you very much. So it was nice to have you with me for tonight's viewing. And I got to say, as a penultimate episode, I wasn't disappointed. I think it answered enough questions that I felt satisfied, and it left some doors open to where the finale has some potential to have some really big twists and reveals, and I'm happy on a whole.
Yeah, I really liked it as it filled in a lot of the gaps from the 7 days post time frame, as well as the backstory of Man in Black and Emily. I just don't know how they're going to wrap everything up in the season finale that's going to be satisfactory to many diehard fans or podcasters, including ourselves. And I think it accentuated some fans' grumblings about wasting an entire last episode with the Aki Cheetah storyline. I felt like I could see where people who watched the show, especially when you compare it to this week's episode, why they took it, they didn't at least break it up and show some of what they showed today, because unless the season finale is 2 hours long, I don't know how they're going to wrap this up without people grumbling that they have to wait 18 months to figure out what the hell is the show going to do.
Yeah, last week's episode was important to have the fans connect with the character and understand the essence of the awakening process and how far back it's gone. This week's episode, I think, gave us some equally important backstory that I'm hoping people don't grumble, because we've wondered, some of the question is the Man in Black a host? Why is Emily after him? We get to see the suicide. But for me, what made this episode was very much what made last week's episode the same, is the performances. You have Ed Harris, who's killing it in his backstory, even the scenes with Emily. And you're still wondering. I found myself questioning when I thought, okay, yes, he's a host. Emily is real. He's real. Emily's a host. Even to the end where I wasn't quite sure exactly what they were showing me.
Yeah, there were definitely some fantastic performances. You mentioned Ed Harris. You mentioned Anthony Hopkins, Jeffrey Wright. I think at the end of the day, even if you don't like Westworld as a show, or it's lost you, or you're confused, you can still point to these absolutely phenomenal performances across the board. And I just really hope that they finally reward them with some Emmys when it comes to award season.
Yeah, and you talk about the performances with Jeffrey Wright and Anthony Hopkins. That scene where they're in the buggy with Elsie and they're out trying to collect arms, and we get the most vivid conflict that Bernard is going through in his head, with Ford popping up over each shoulder, sitting in the back of the buggy. And when Jeffrey Wright screams out, "Leave me alone, please." It was amazing. It was great television.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So if you've never listened to the podcast before, we do 3 episodes a week Of course, this is our Enscast, which we record immediately after watching the episode for the first time at 9 p.m. Eastern American time. Then we go back into the studios tomorrow, record our deep dive after we review the episode again and maybe take some deeper notes and explore some further themes. And then we do a fan email voicemail read and response episode, which we release on Fridays, called the Westworld Telegraph. So we do 3 episodes a week for Westworld here at Shat on TV, Instacast on Sundays, Deep Dive we release on Tuesdays, and then Fridays we release our Telegraph. If you want to be part of the conversation, if there's anything we missed or anything you want to talk about, you can email us, hosts@shatontv.com, or you can call us at 914-719-SHAT and leave a voicemail, 914-719-SHAT. Again, this is our Enscast. We're going to talk about some things that what we learned, some new questions, and also some overall impressions. So Big D, what are some things that you learned in the episode that you want to talk about?
So one of the big questions that was answered for me was, how in the premiere episode do we see all of the hosts floating in that new bay that is created in the area of the Valley Beyond? We wondered how they got there. Now we see that the techs are using Maeve's ability to access host admin privileges. They load up Clementine just like she is a victim infected with a virus, and they set her upon these group of hosts to see what it does. And it looks like the whole group of hosts end up killing themselves.
So you think the hosts that we see in the beginning in season 2, episode 1, when they're all in the lake, you think that possibly they're using the code that's in Maeve to then all attack themselves and drown themselves in that lake?
Yeah, so they give us a visual demonstration. They load Clementine up with the code. She's in one of the glass containment units. There's about, 15 hosts next door. They load her up. She gets close to them, and then they start propagating. One of the hosts, you can see it indicated by the light up pins on the display. That host is infected. It propagates to the next. So they're using the mesh network to spread the virus, and the virus is for them to attack each other.
Yeah, the zombie Clementine essentially is spreading the zombie host disease.
Right, and this explains, and I'm not going to discuss the trailer for next week's episode because I think it gives away a lot.
Right.
And there's a lot of our audience that doesn't look at the trailers, but I'm assuming at this point everybody's watched the trailer that was let out before the season, and the one for Comic-Con. And there's the scene that we've referenced about Clementine on horseback riding, and there's a group. So it looks like, I'm saying, the hosts were making their way, and Clem goes out there and just starts running them down and spreading this virus. They kill each other, and then something causes the flood.
Right. Well, I think that was a really interesting point that we learned. We also learned, you talk about the weapon and how that could be the virus that's the code embedded in Maeve, and how that's going to be spread by Clementine, by the tech. I also liked how we learn what Dolores is looking for and what that is going to be named. I think there was a couple of possible entries of what people were writing in and saying that it could be called, but we actually got a real name. I think for the first time, it's called what?
It's called the Forge. And we had some people, write in and say that there was the cradle, and then it was going to be the grave.
The grave. That's it.
So we have confirmation now that Delos's project was immortality. That the Valley Beyond is a facility that's like the cradle, but much larger, they describe it. And its title is The Forge. So she's on the way there. It seems like all of our major players are on their way there. And her intent is to weaponize the data that's within it.
Yeah, I've got a sneaking suspicion that next episode of the season finale is going to involve some scenes in the Forge. I think they're going to go into the Forge like they did with the cradle. So it'll be interesting to see that. A lot of the episode, though, was dedicated to Man in Black and filling in that backstory of he and Emily, and then showing what happened or supposedly happened with his wife dying, Juliet. We learn that basically it's showing how he is kind of a good guy in the world. And I thought what was interesting is it showcases that he and Emily actually had a pretty good relationship up until the supposed suicide of his wife.
Yeah, and we've wondered because there's a duality to the Man in Black and William, that outside the park he seemed to be a renowned philanthropist. He had a foundation which one of the hosts and one of the guests in the early season thanked him for saving his sister. So he always seemed like a good guy out in the real world, but what we saw of him in the park was always in question. And in this episode, they make it clear, and to me, it's a believable point, that we always felt he would be the cause of his wife's unhappiness and destroying the family. But it seems like there is a mental issue, or there's something that the Delos family was dealing with on top of addiction, because his wife seems to be the honest problem, enough that before her suicide, she was committed. There seems to be a reoccurring problem. And you're right, the Man in Black and Emily, they seem to be a uniform front against Juliet.
Yeah, to the point to where it wasn't the Man in Black who sent Juliet away for addiction. It was actually Emily who called in against the Man in Black's will. He didn't want to have her committed again. It seems as if he, really had an affection. I thought it was going to be maybe something to where Juliet found out about his affairs with Dolores, but it seems to be more aligned with her personal demons that seems to really be part of I don't know if it's in their DNA or something is happening within the Delos family. These are very rich people. I don't know how rich people act, but I imagine it's something like this.
I love how Roger right now is claiming that, how clear it was. Up until we're confident that the mother killed herself, he's like, I knew it. That's William in the bathtub. William killed himself. He's been a host the entire time. I knew it. And I said, no, he didn't.
Well, there are some interesting questions, though, Big D, about that. I want to save that till the end here. So let's talk about what else we learned. We learned that there are rally points. A lot of people questioned how people can be saved, whether it was Ghost Nation as a benevolent security force. No, there's actually apparently rally points where guests in the park can access medical equipment and then send out flares for help, which Emily does for the Man in Black. We also learn that the hats that people wear are actual scanners.
Yeah, and that's an interesting point and important, because we've always wondered how much information can you collect about a person based on the few choices that they make when presented with the host and options. Do you shoot someone? Do you not? Do you go into Sweetwater? Do you go onto an adventure? And we always said that doesn't give you a complete picture of who someone is based on the few choices that they make. And it's nice to see Emily calls that out when questioning her father. She wants to know the true picture and says, how could you be getting a real snapshot of who someone is unless you were scanning them 24 hours a day? And it was nice. It was the answer was right there. Whether it's feasible that you could hide that technology into a Stetson, or what happens if it's a female guest who doesn't want to wear a hat. Yeah. Maybe it's in a bandana.
I can already tell we're going to get tons of questions about, well, why is it a hat? What if they don't like wearing hats when they sleep? How are they going to understand their sleep patterns?
Yeah, but it's nice to show that it's nice that the show actually addressed it.
Yeah.
And that they were thinking of it and saying, yes, to get a true picture, you need to be reading the people's minds almost continuously to get that snapshot. So that's a big piece of the tech that they answer.
Well, you talk about the profile being collected and being measured. We see at the gala that's being thrown for William, it apparently is for one of Emily's many charities that she's doing. Robert Ford is there to pay his respects, but it's not just that. He's also handing to William what appears to be like an entire profile, something related to what he's really doing in the park with Daddy Delos and the collection and the understanding of it. And later on in the episode, we actually see Juliet pull up the profile for William, and the profile is not, and this is what Dr. Ford warns him against. He has to be careful for what he wishes for, because it pulls up a category 47B with persecutory subtypes. This is all William. Delusions and a paranoid subtype. Apparently, this is a rare occurrence. 0.0072% of all humans, I guess, have this type of profile. For those who don't know what persecutory delusions are, they're a set of delusional conditions in which affected persons believe they're being persecuted. Specifically, they've been defined as containing two central elements. Number one, the individual thinks that harm is occurring or going to occur. I think of all of us on the podcast, of the four of us, Carrie Gross, yourself, or Gene, I think I might be, I think I fall into this category.
Yeah, 100%. I'm expecting you at the end of the season finale to look at your arm and try to see if you have a port that you can open up. But yeah, Dr. Ford and we see William in their professional, relationship, that they had an agreement. Robert would have the park, work with the narratives. Delos would not interfere with that as long as the park didn't interfere with their secret mission for immortality. Ford says something curious, said that, we didn't violate the agreement. You did.
That's right.
So that's something we're going to have to look at. But this whole personal profile that's given to William, it seems convenient. We can't take it as fact because at this point, we don't know if William was a host, if he's human. It's still up for debate. But if you wanted to make someone question their origin, if you wanted to drive someone to potentially kill themselves or to act in a way that would question who they are and their origin, if they're real, would be to show someone a profile that says that they are mentally unstable and they are paranoid. This would just ramp up their self-questioning and their doubt.
Well, you talk about that questioning or that self-doubt. What if Teddy, go with me here, what if Teddy was kind of the guinea pig for all that? Because we see at the end of the episode that he takes the gun and he shoots himself because he goes to Dolores that, you made me this way. I can't go on being this way. You were my cornerstone. And in the episode, Man in Black is struggling with that. He's remembering all these things that have happened to him, but he can't pull the trigger. I think it's probably because of something he remembered. But is Teddy, is that supposed to showcase that Man in Black is actually real and Teddy was a host? And if Man in Black was a host, then he would have killed himself?
Well, I think there's still a doubt in William's mind. With the last shot we see of him, he's about to open up his arm to get the answer. Teddy's confident who he is today and who he was when he was created. He doesn't doubt his love for Dolores. He remembers intensely how he felt and how it felt to be alive. So his choice to end himself is because he knows where they're going, where Dolores is taking them. He could never harm her. So his only option is to either kill himself or betray who he is. The Man in Black is still questioning that to this point, and we're left questioning it. And bothers me is that why didn't the Man in Black, his daughter's there. He's now racked with guilt that he potentially killed his daughter, 5 human, QA responders. I would have opened up. I like to say I'd opened up my daughter's head.
Of course you would.
But come on, wouldn't he have checked?
It's he goes straight for the arm. What's interesting is that we see him in the gala in the beginning when he's at the charity event and his arm is shaking. And throughout the entire episode, he's like, you don't see it at first. And I feel like they're talking to the audience there. They're purposefully saying that phrase and repeating that phrase throughout the episode for a reason.
Yeah, well, remember that episode, the William and Ford and Emily, and there's the drinking episode before the suicide. That is before the Man in Black goes back into the park for the last time. So during this period of time and before the suicide, he is questioning his reality. Juliet's asking him, is this real? Are you real? Is there anything you've told me is real? So the Man in Black, even through season 1, has been questioning whether or not he could be a host.
That's right. But Ford even says to him, throughout season 1, this isn't intended for you. But also at the gala, in a very dun 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 moment, he says, I have one more challenge for you, William. But there's little things that are spread throughout. When you're talking about the questioning, the QA team comes up behind and they do the little, what we call the C6 scanner test that shows that he is human. But you brought up a good question of why he may still pass the test and still be a host.
Yeah, that was a quick one. If you see when the QA respond to the what did they call the beacon? Rally. When they respond to the rally point beacon and they show up, and this seems like the first competent QA team we've seen. They roll up. They don't believe Emily saying, I'm a human. He's a human. Even though one of the QA responders recognizes William as the boss, he still holds him at gunpoint, puts the scanner to his neck, and you can see for a second it says C6. So they're scanning for the explosive that's in the host vertebrae. The problem with this is we know Maeve doesn't have one. We don't know if any of the other hosts don't have them. So you could get a situation where a host has a false positive. So don't take it that William is human simply because he passed the scanner. He could be a very special host that doesn't have the C6 explosive vertebrae.
Yeah, all I wanted the Man in Black to do was just to pick up the C6 scanner and just scan Emily before killing her. Yeah. That's all he had to do.
Yes, or you just hold her at gunpoint, then you scan her, then you scan the guards.
That's right. But he's got the category 47B, so of course he can't do that. Some other interesting things that I want to dive into for the deep dive. We're introduced to the word Timshel, which is Hebrew for "thou shalt rule over it." That comes from the King James Bible, Genesis 4:7. Those are God's words to Cain about sin lying at the door. There's also a quote from Plutarch, who later, upon becoming a Roman citizen, he was a Greek biographer and essayist, primarily known for his parallel lives and Moralia. So again, we're seeing a lot of, just as we've seen in season 1 and season 2, a lot of Greek philosophy coming into it, as well as biblical themes. So I'm going to dive into that for the deep dive. What else do we want to talk about or preview for the deep dive on Tuesday?
Well, I think some of the things I want to look into was my last reveal for this episode is the interaction that Ford finally has with Maeve. And it shows us a lot that Bernard is still carrying around Ford. He gets close enough to jump into Maeve and shares that Maeve was his favorite host and that he'd actually intended for Maeve to leave the park early on. But her choice to return and stay for the love of her child helped motivate Ford and what he's doing today. So I want to look and see what more we can draw between the parallels of those two characters. I think also I want to say, I got to go back and try to really dig it apart and say, is the Man in Black actually crazy? Or is his cornerstone being played against him? And that there, like he says, there's moments where I felt like I was William, where he's screaming at Emily saying, oh, your game is fucked up. You don't have to do this. I know you're not Emily. As a viewer, I feel the same way. So I want to go back and really delve down and try to see, is there a definitive answer that we have that we can say, he is a human, he is a host? I think that needs some second viewing.
Yeah, there's definitely some interesting clues that I think were dropped along the way, some breadcrumbs that if we follow back, hopefully the birds haven't eaten them like Hansel and Gretel and we don't end up in a witch's oven. But I think the issue that I have is there's some things that Emily said about how she discovered the memory card and about the box and how she threw it away and she went to look for it and it was already gone, but yet the mother has it in her desk. What is real and what isn't? Did the mother actually pick it out of the trash and put it in her desk? Or did that never really happen? And that's just Ford's story. He's just telling it. So like, it's going to be interesting to see and discuss about what is real and what isn't.
Yeah. And that's a testament to the show that I found myself questioning multiple times, thinking I had the answer. And all of the different options are plausible. It could be this is a planted false memory, because we were like, okay, no. At one point, the Man in Black says, I know you're not real because I never told anyone about the card. Then they answer it. They show that Juliet was faking, that she wasn't so drunk. She put it into the ballerina box, and that would be how Emily found it. But the one thing that still sticks with me and I want to go look at is Emily keeps questioning, why did she do it? What happened? Why did she do it this time?
Yeah.
It seems like Emily has every piece of information, and the only reason she keeps asking is to just fuck with her father.
I agree. And at the end of the day, she's trying to play him in the beginning by saying, I want to join you. And then at the end, she's like, no, I'm going to take you down. And it seems like Robert wasn't really happy with what William was doing in the place. And if she's really a host that is planted there by Robert, it would make sense of why she's trying to collect information to bring him down. Right. So again, it's a little Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde there with the Emily bot or real Emily. I don't know at this point, but it's going to be interesting to see your take on it and also Gene's take on this.
I mean, it's like last season, I think there was a point around episode 7 where we started to question, how can they close this up in 2 episodes? And this season replicated that, where I think this penultimate episode answered so much that the finale, if it's an hour and a half, hour, 40 minutes, they can wrap everything up in a compelling way that would really make season 3 something exciting to look forward to, and allow them to straighten out some of the issues that they've had with the structuring of the format and the timelines. But I don't know that they can do it in an hour. So yeah. I'm eager to see when they release the episode length, because I think that would tell us a lot about what we can expect next Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, they would also have to spend or dedicate a lot of the time, because really, I think the only scenes that we saw in this episode that related to the 14 days plus time frame is when Teddy shoots himself. Right. The others really there was. So we have to spend a lot of time at the end. And I think that's going to be where they're going to be in the forge.
Yeah. And I think they've answered enough of the questions that we now no longer need to see exactly how all the hosts got into the bay. And they can do it in quick snapshots. We have all the pieces and the answers. We know Clementine will infect them to kill each other. They don't need to dedicate 20 minutes to that, to actually seeing them butcher each other. You just need to see her start the spread of the plague. Yeah. And it's going to be exciting. For those who sat and watched the trailer at the end of the episode, that makes me extremely excited.
Yeah.
Before I saw the trailer, I was like, After the trailer, I was all in.
Yeah. All right. Well, that does it for this week's Intocast, unless there's anything else you want to talk about.
No. Nope. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. And if you're like me, you're ready for a nap.
That does it for this week's Intocast. Again, if you have any thoughts, ideas, or comments on this week's episode, please email us at hosts@shatontv.com or call us and leave a voicemail 914-719-SHAT. You can follow us everywhere on social media and share with a friend. We're on Twitter, Snapchat, and Instagram at Shat on TV. Our Facebook, just search for Shat on TV podcast. Our website, where you can see all the great emails and all of our episode archives, is shatontv.com, where everywhere fine podcasts can be found, including iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, YouTube, Spotify, iHeartRadio. Be sure to subscribe. And if you stop by any of those, please be sure to leave a 5-star review. That really helps the podcast grow. Also, I want to big shout out to Michael L., who made a great donation on our new Venmo link. Just search for @Shat Podcast if you want to donate something to the podcast. A great, generous donation, Michael. Thank you so much. Again, you don't have to send anything in, but if you do, we certainly appreciate it. That really helps the cost for the recordings and the website hosting fees and all that kind of fun stuff. So thank you so much. You can also check out our sister podcast, Shat the Movies, where we review 80s and 90s movies that you, the audience, votes on. You can check out all the information on the website, shatthemovies.com. On behalf of my co-host, Big D, Dick Ebert, Gene Lyons, who's in Chicago, and Carrie Gross, who's hiding from YouTube commenters, I'm Roger Roper. Be sure to join us on Tuesday for our deep dive review of episode 9, season 2 of Westworld. Thank you so much for listening. Take care. Good night. And we'll see you at the Mesa Bar.